One man steps away from the formation. He is not the tallest on the field, and his armor is not the most elaborate, but something in the way he carries himself. The measured stride, the hand resting easy near his sword, brings 80,000 Byzantine soldiers to silence. His voice carries across the valley without strain. He is asking for a fight, one-on-one, champion against champion. Whoever is still standing when it ends, takes the momentum. The Byzantines have exactly the right men for this. Specialists raised from boyhood for ritual single combat, veterans who have buried opponents across a dozen provinces. Surely one of them can handle a lone Arab from the desert. The first champion rides out, fully armored, lance lowered, confident. The duel lasts 11 seconds. The Arab kills him so cleanly that half the Byzantine line does not register it until the corpse hits the ground. The horse bolts. The Arab calls out again. Who is next? 8 more times. 8 champions. 8 corpses. When the 9th challenge rings out, no one moves. 80,000 professional soldiers, the trained corps of the Eastern Roman Empire, will not face one man. The Muslim army watching from across the field feels something shift. Fear evaporates. Doubt dissolves. If a single fighter can make an empire hesitate, what can an army of believers do? His name is Zarar ibn al-Azwar. He is one of the Mubarizun, the champions, the duelists, the men whose purpose was not merely to win fights, but to destroy the enemy's will to fight before the battle even began. Hold this question. How does psychological warfare help a small force conquer half the known world in a single generation? Because that is exactly what they accomplished. They were not simply elite soldiers. They were instruments of terror, living proof that something beyond ordinary human capacity had entered the field. When 2 of history's greatest empires stood against them, both shattered. This is their story. The year is 633 CE. The Prophet Muhammad has been dead 12 months. Abu Bakr, the first caliph, is sending armies north into Byzantine Syria and east into Sassanid Iraq, columns of 3,000 to 5,000 men facing imperial forces 10 times their size. On paper, it reads as suicide. The Byzantines and Persians command professional soldiers, heavy cavalry, siege engines, and centuries of accumulated battlefield doctrine. The Muslims bring light cavalry, absolute conviction, and a willingness to die that their opponents find incomprehensible. But Abu Bakr and his commanders, above all Khalid ibn al-Walid, the man called the Sword of God, understand something the empires do not. War is not purely about killing. It is about breaking. You do not need to destroy every enemy soldier. You only need to make them believe they have already lost. The fastest route to that outcome is fear. So the Muslim commanders sharpen a tactic the ancient world has seen before. They send champions, individual fighters who advance into the open ground between the armies and challenge the enemy's best to personal combat. The Greeks did this. The Romans did it in the early Republic. But the Muslims transform it into something systematic. They call these men the Mubarizun, those who step forward, those who come out to duel. Selection is precise, not just for sword skill, though all of them are exceptional fighters, but for a subtler quality. They must appear beatable, smaller than the opposing champion, less armored, men who make the enemy think the outcome is obvious, and then must destroy that opponent so completely, so publicly, that every watching soldier realizes the obvious conclusion was wrong. At Ajnadain in 634, a Muslim soldier named Abu Jandal steps forward against 4 Byzantine champions in succession and kills all 4 before the Byzantines stop sending challengers. The Muslim army erupts. The Byzantines hear that roar and feel the first crack form in their confidence, a question spreading through the ranks no officer can answer. If one man can do that, what happens when 30,000 of them charge? When the battle begins, the doubt is already embedded. The Muslims win. Abu Jandal, a soldier most of history has forgotten, becomes a legend before sunset. Yarmouk, August 636. 6 days of fighting that end Byzantine power in the Levant forever. 80,000 Byzantines against 25,000 Muslims. Before a single formation advances, Zarar ibn al-Azwar rides alone into the open ground in nothing but a helmet and breastplate, shouting his challenge, "Send your best, one at a time." The Byzantines send a Ghassanid Arab who knows desert fighters and has killed Muslims before. The 2 charge. The Ghassanid thrusts. Zarar twists in the saddle, lets the spear pass, and brings his sword through in one motion. The Ghassanid crumples. The laughter in the Byzantine ranks stops. Another champion rides out, then another. Zarar kills the second, the third, the fourth. Each fight lasts less than a minute. He does not merely win, he dominates, as though the result were fixed before the blades met. By the fifth challenger, the mood in the Byzantine formation has shifted from mockery to something colder. Soldiers are whispering, making signs against evil. The fifth champion dies. The sixth, the seventh, the eighth. And then Zarar does not ride back to his lines. He stays, in the open, between both armies, covered in blood, hoarse breathing hard, and screams another challenge. No one answers. 80,000 men, not one steps forward. When the battle starts, the Muslims fight with the certainty of men who already know the result. The Byzantines fight like men, halfway to defeated. That psychological gap is worth 10,000 soldiers on any ledger. The battle runs 6 days. 40,000 Byzantines are dead by the end. Syria is lost to Rome forever. The Mubarizun were not limited to pre-battle duels. At Qadisiyah that same year, the Persians deploy 33 armored war elephants, and the Muslim horses panic. The commander Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas calls for the Mubarizun, "Stop the charge however you can." They go in individually, each man targeting one elephant, dodging tusks, slashing at trunks, putting arrows into handlers. One Mubariz, Qaqa ibn Amr, runs beneath an elephant and drives his blade upward into its belly. The animal turns on its own side and bolts. The rest follow. The Persian line dissolves into a rout. The Mubarizun were also deployed for work that had nothing to do with open battle. In one documented account from the Syrian campaigns, a Byzantine fortress is holding out, and no siege equipment is available. A prolonged assault could take months. The commander sends 10 Mubarizun in darkness with one objective: breach the walls, kill the commander, open the gates. They scale the walls on ropes, move through the interior without sound, reach the commander before he can raise an alarm. His guards die seconds later. The Mubarizun fight to the main gate, cut down the sentries, and pull it open. The army pours in. The fortress falls in under an hour. This happens again and again across the campaigns. Enemy commanders begin sleeping in different rooms each night. Sentry rotations double. Fear spreads not through battlefield defeat but through one understanding lodged deep in the mind. No wall is high enough, no watch vigilant enough, and they will find a way inside regardless. History tends to overlook the women among them, but the record is clear on at least one. Khawla bint al-Azwar, Zarar's sister, is at Yarmouk when Byzantine cavalry breaks through the perimeter and reaches the camp where women and children are sheltered. Muslim soldiers begin pulling back to protect their families. Khalid does not wait. She picks up a tent pole, rallies the other women, and leads a charge against the mounted soldiers. The Byzantines, stunned that a group of women just attacked them, hesitate long enough for Muslim cavalry to arrive and cut them apart. The defining moment: Khawla issues a formal challenge to a Byzantine officer and kills him in single combat in front of both armies. The Muslims are electrified. The Byzantines are not merely beaten, they are humiliated. Every time Khawla steps forward in later campaigns, the enemy faces an impossible choice: refuse and appear cowardly, or accept and risk being killed by a woman. Either outcome is a defeat. The Mubarizun turned the terms of combat itself into a weapon, and that weapon had no edge that the enemy could blunt. By the late 630s, the Caliphate was transforming. Larger armies fought in organized formations. The tradition of pre-battle duels faded steadily, and by the Umayyad era, the Mubarizun were stories old men told. But the insight they proved survived. Morale matters, psychology matters, and breaking the enemy's belief before the first formation moves is worth 10,000 soldiers on any accounting. There is a final image worth holding. It is 638 CE. Jerusalem has surrendered. Caliph Umar arrives to receive the keys. Simple robes, a camel, no ceremony. With him are quiet, scarred veterans who carry themselves with the stillness of men who have seen everything. These are Mubarizun. The Byzantines on the walls see legends, the men who broke their empire. The city surrenders without a fight. Umar visits the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Patriarch offers to let him pray inside. He declines, saying that if he prays there, future generations may claim it as a mosque. So he prays outside, alone. The Mubarizun watch their caliph, refuse to take what he could easily take. Some weep, because they understand at last what they were building. Not just victories, a world with room in it for mercy. Here is the answer. Psychological warfare helps a small force conquer half the known world, because it breaks the enemy before the fighting starts. Every duel becomes proof. Every champion's death sends a message through an army like a current: you have already lost. The Mubarizun did not just win fights, they dismantled the enemy's capacity to believe they could win. Combine that with commanders like Khalid ibn al-Walid pressing every advantage, and you get campaigns that should not have been possible. An empire assembled in 30 years that endured in some form for 1,000. It begins with one man stepping into the open ground, calling out a challenge and killing the opposing champion in front of everyone. Whatever the fight in front of you looks like, the lesson is simple. They step forward anyway. Empires fell.